Everyone, welcome back in. BetSports Golf here for the 2024 Charles Schwab Challenge betting preview, unpacking probably for a good chunk here at the top, the PGA Championship. Andy, what's going on?
Yeah, today we'll spend a lot of time on the Charles Schwab. We're gonna do our best to give you some bets that we like at the end. We'll go through our key stats, some analysis of this course, this field, this event, everyone who's coming in. Obviously, if you want to get more of this, if you want to get the DFS show, the other stuff, please do hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. If you're watching this on YouTube, we appreciate you. But we will start with looking back at last week at Valhalla, which got some hate and probably noted. I don't know, has somebody made this joke yet? I felt like it was too mean spirited to make in the moment because I like Xander and I've always liked Xander. I've bet on him too much. Obviously, the joke with my bets were I'm just making the top 10 bet because why not? That's auto. It was auto.
Yeah.
Congrats, plus 105 betters there. You didn't get as much money, but the joke was, how do you get Xander to win a major? You hold it at a course that isn't actually meant to host a major. Like basically, we just we run the Barbasol, and instead we call it the PGA Championship. Still a great leaderboard. Like you get that many good golfers together, it doesn't matter how shitty the course is. You're gonna have a great leaderboard. It was fun, and that was the only thing I did actually complain about in tweet form was it's like the closing stretch was so boring. It's like unless Xander absolutely melts, well below, multiple degrees below where he should be. Like I don't know how he doesn't just win going into this par five. Like there's no decisions to be made on any of the holes, especially the final stretch. So, and it is funny that Hovland kind of biffed it, but I mean that was just kind of a whatever putting at the end there.
Once he missed the first one, it really didn't matter as much. That was definitely my sweat heading into the weekend. I was excited about it, just more so than anything. Feels like Vic is back, which I think is it's good. I touched on it a little bit yesterday on the First Look show with Ron. Like, we want it to be a little bit more interesting. We want some of these guys to at least flirt with the ability to maybe close in on Scotty. And kudos to Xander. This is probably the most Xander thing ever. I feel like the takeaways when we remember Valhalla years from now will be Bryson and Scotty getting arrested, which is just an absolutely insane statement to say that happened since the last time we met. Scotty Scheffler got arrested and spent time doing his warm-up on Friday in a jail cell.
I had such a long list of shit to do that day. So Thursdays I watch golf. I put the golf up. Fridays I watch golf. I have it, but I'm still able to get work done. I usually keep the sound off until the afternoon. I did a long list of articles I wanted to get started on, some newsletter stuff, some other stuff, and I don't get to work until a certain time because I have to bring the kids to school. Wife had the day off, so she could bring the kids to school. I went to work like 45 minutes early. And I looked up and suddenly I'd been here for 3 hours and I had done nothing, nothing but tweet and read and retweet and like, and just in discords, in, group chats and like all this and speculate like, oh my God, what's going to happen? We had the weather delay. Obviously, very, very unique situation. I don't expect us to have a situation like that ever again. If you had given me 70 guesses on who would somebody got arrested this morning on the tour. They're in Valhalla, 70 guesses, and I probably would have got to Scotty just because I had to run out of names to think of at that point.
Yeah, you start with Grayson Murray.
So like, all right, Patrick Reed, Bryson.
Sure.
Is it Killer Keith? Like, what do we got here? Like, who got arrested?
And Doug Gim.
Doug Gim. What did Doug Gim do? Yeah, it would have taken a lot. So that was huge. And it is strange. And I've seen some tweets about this that I don't fully disagree with about the other key point you brought up. The other big headline was like Bryson's lovable again. And someone's like, well, Bryson is very lovable in measured doses. If we only have to deal with his antics and him being Bryson 4 or 5 times a year, he's a lot more lovable. It's like that, classmate, cousin, sibling that maybe he didn't get along growing up with, and now it's like, oh, I enjoy seeing them 3 times a year. Like that's nice, and that's just enough.
It's a good analogy.
I've always been a Bryson guy. I bet him. That was another one in the newsletter. I had Bryson top 5 at like 4-1.
Nice.
Obviously, I had the outright, which would have been much nicer at 30. But it was nice to catch that because it paid for that, and Xander paid for anything else that I tried to squirrel out of this one. So good job to him, and like just a good tournament. People forget like guy's a pretty good putter. Guy's got pretty decent hands. He's a good short game. Like he is. Mm-hmm. I don't know. His ceiling wasn't realized because I think he has a higher ceiling. We've seen him win majors. Like
he didn't birdie the par 5s in the front. Like that's like his ceiling is a winner for sure.
Yeah, his ceiling is being as good as Scotty. Like it's wild how his metamorphosis has gone from skinny weirdo to buff, too big weirdo to live weirdo to before that it was the Brooks Bryson feud that wasn't really a feud, I guess, and now he's just kind of back to like just a kind of a normal guy. So I'm in on Bryson. I'm excited to see. I don't know how well Pinehurst matches up with his game, but I wouldn't love him this week if he was playing at Colonial. I don't know if it's a great course for him here, but it was a good course and it was a good outcome for him.
I think the thing with Bryson is I have a lot of Bryson thoughts actually, but I'm with you on Bryson. I think he was a big winner of the weekend. I think a big part of it, if I could like summarize it into one sentence, I think he still takes his golf very serious. I think he takes himself slightly less serious, and that's part of it. I think he's just more approachable as a human being. He's talked about this. This is a guy that like, he just didn't have a lot of friends growing up. He's a little bit socially awkward in that. And I think there's a lot of like, there's a cliquey nature to like the high pedigree inner circle golf world of these guys coming up and playing juniors together and all these different things and competing at these tournaments from the age of like 10 till they turn pro or decide to go play college together or like whatnot. So he was definitely on the outside of that, SMU, no friends, all my clubs are the same. Like I love as like a golf hardo. I love the fact that he's just trying to continue to think outside the box, 3D printing irons or doing all sorts of different things to try to think and do things a little bit different than the stock way that it gets done. The problem was that he just seemed to took himself so seriously. The complaining about stuff was so unapproachable and made him really hard to swallow. And I think that to your point, he's just out of sight, out of mind a little bit more. So maybe the complaining is happening less and maybe we just don't see it as much. A part of it is like just being on live. But, I think he also made nice organic kudos with like the ball thing to the kid or like he snatched that adult back. Like that's just a social win massively for him too. So
I don't remember. It was one of the later holes that he birdied on Sunday too. Like his celebration.
Yeah, I love that.
You can tell like he's into it. He wants to win. He's got a little riz, as the kids say. So
look at you.
I enjoyed
it on Thursday chip in, and he's doing this like just those things are so the low hanging fruit. No one does that. Like everyone's such a robot. That's part of like the non appeal of Xander. Everything is so meticulous. Like he couldn't even talk about like I'm playing good golf. I don't care about what I haven't won. I'm just gonna maintain the process. And like
Xander was just like a CLV merchant. Like the process. I'm getting good numbers. He's like a tout service that isn't winning, but they're getting good numbers. It's like, man, I'm getting good CLV. This is gonna turn around, guys.
Yeah, I feel good about what I'm doing.
This was the week that he had a 6-1 NFL week, and I told everybody my 3-unit bomb hit, my 2-unit bomb hit. We hit the teaser, we hit the parlay, 6-1 week, up 10 units. Let's go. So congrats on the CLV for years and finally coming through. But yeah, he's boring. Some people made the joke too. Like, do you still think Scotty's boring? Yeah, still. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, getting arrested for that isn't cool. It's not like if he was like in some underground fight club or drag racing club or something, or like he got caught for something crazy. Yeah, but I mean, this was just like a misunderstanding kind of thing. It's not like he got
street cred for going to. I know some people that have gone to jail that aren't cool. So Scotty's still kind of boring from his, like we're saying, the personality, the excitement, or when he's winning. He's not boring to watch. Don't misunderstand me there.
Yeah,
it is fascinating to watch his irons. It's fascinating to watch his shot shaping off the tee. He is a magician. It just I don't know. It doesn't have that certain je ne sais quoi that we got with when Tiger was really pumping it. When honestly, even when like Brooks and Bryson were on tour and we're starting to win. I don't know who else there is to compare to some of these guys, and some guys that have had a lot. I mean, even like Phil.
Sure.
Phil was just an interesting, and interesting maybe more as a euphemism for Phil at this point. But his interactions with the crowd and just him as a person, yeah, Phil's a fucking funny dude. So,
yeah.
And yeah, speaking of, Scotty is from Texas, and Scotty is playing this week on a much different track. Honestly, this is tougher. This is going to be a tougher track.
1,000%.
Going from a major to a, I don't want to say it's not some alt event. Let's not
No.
Piss on the grave of Colonial and Hogan's Alley and all that. Like, it's a smaller event, but this is an invitational field. This is not an open. There's no Monday queue for invitationals. There's no getting in because you're a PGA pro. This is a full-on smaller.
Unless you're Michael Block last year, who got the invite.
They did
invitational. They got the invite though.
There's still sponsors. Don't get me wrong. There's still sponsors exemptions, but it is a smaller field, 132. So you got the 65 in ties, and some bigger names. Even the week after major, Scotty, Jordan, some of the local yokels that are going to want to play Texas golf, and then some decent names in the top 50 made it here too. So not a bad turnaround for the week after a major.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. It's decent. People like coming here. You mentioned Scotty, and he touched on in his presser, like he's playing this week, which would be interesting. You can see why he would maybe want to step away again for the week. But again, I don't think it's not sleeping in his bed, his childhood bed narrative like we have with Spieth here and some of the other guys. But being close to being in Texas and stuff like that probably makes a lot of sense. But Morikawa, home is here, Finau, so, decent collection at the top for a post-major non-signature event at this point. So definitely.
Harman. Love him or hate him. A lot of people hate him, I guess, but he's a major winner at this point.
Yeah.
Harman, like you said, Sung J M, Keegan, some decent players here. So Keegan, I can't believe he didn't shout out Keegan at this point. So let's talk Colonial. A lot of news. Let's not even talk about the course to start. Let's talk about the renovation. And I feel like I was kind of half listening because I was working in the garage, and I did the asshole thing where I didn't put the headphones on. I had the Bluetooth speaker. I was using a circle saw, so I missed chunks of it. But I think Andy did a decent. Andy Lack, who I listened to his at least his over the weekend pod every week. He did a decent job of explaining the difference between like a renovation and a rebuild. I don't know what the other word was. Like a redesign. This wasn't a redesign. This is an old ass course, like 100 years old. And they wanted to restore it more to that, how it was before, they did some, hey, let's move this waterway here. Hey, let's put a bunch of cart paths and hardscape and make our jobs easier to like take care of this course, move this drainage, because why would we want drainage? And they brought in Gil Hanse, who's kind of the guy you bring in to do this sort of thing. And they got it done in a hurry, because a lot of times this is like, well, we're taking next year off and members aren't playing here for 2 years. Like, this is going to take 18 to 24 months. Knocked it out, ready to play. So they did it in like 10, 11 months. There's some good videos. If you subscribe, Ron's got a couple in his article, but basically just trying to restore it to some of how it looked, way back when we originally built this, to the Maxwell designs, and, like what this looked like, what it should look like being a Texas course, a Dallas course, getting the Broncos back, getting some more little drainage creeks through it.
Love a good
putting
Bronco.
Some islands back in the bunkers. Actually removed a bunch of bunkers, brought some light into the course, brought some, got some trees out of there.
Yep.
So it's going to be a little more wide open from that, but it's still, I think the overarching theme is tight fairways, dog legs, tiny landing areas, tiny greens, can't overpower it. Like, you're really probably off the tee accuracy and translating that off the tee accuracy into a second shot that finds these tiny greens as well.
Yeah, still positional golf, right? At the end of the day, with all the changes and what you need to do here, a lot of it, I think, maintains the integrity of what we know, because this has been one of the stickier course history places year over year, where guys come in and you typically see, if you've had some reps, you've had, solid finishes here in the past, you typically find your way near or towards the top of the leaderboard the next time you come around. I don't know that changes very much, but I guess we'll have, it'll be tough. We'll get a 1 year sample and then we'll make some drastic decisions based off of that. But I still think we'll be, having kind of navigated your way around here historically, probably bodes well versus you making maybe your first or second appearance here. So I think it looks like maybe the par threes had the most change, hole 8, hole 13. But for the most part, like you said, it's probably going to play very similar. Like, we've seen the Kokrak win. We saw the Sam Burns win, where guys were trying to find angles, if you have the apex to do it, where you can maybe mitigate a little bit of the dog leg length and cut some of that off. Not everyone has that, and that doesn't really fit for everyone. So you can still find ways to. Still have to be dialed in with your irons, and we have shorter irons here. Typically, we've been in a rut of longer golf courses, so a lot of 175 to 200 plus. This week we got a lot of short irons, a lot of like 100, 150 is kind of the key bucket range for most of these guys this week, even if you are hanging back distance wise. So that's kind of a change too, in a skill set that I think comes into play a little bit more and opens up a little bit more of the board than maybe normal events that we've been at as of late. Some of the top guys even in the world, that we don't see them shooting from that range very often because they have so much length.
Yeah, guys who can shape the ball both ways are going to have an advantage. But I mean, based on just the way that the more tend to bend, hitting a draw has always been beneficial here. So guys who are able to do that, or just guys who are able to shape the ball both ways off the tee, are going to have some advantages. I mean, guys have said this. You could be in the fairway, you can have a pretty nice lie and just not have a very clear shot to the green. There are going to be some spots where, hey, this is a good drive, but it's not. It doesn't really afford me a great opportunity to really throw a dart here and score on this hole. Ton of par holes. So I think too, it's going to be the tactical guys, the guys who know, and maybe that comes to your point, Ryan, where you said it's not so much knowing the course and the intricacies, maybe a little bit, but knowing like this is a par hole for me.
Yeah,
my game is not going to allow me to hit a long enough draw on this hole to get into a spot where I have a comfortable iron shot to score on this hole. So I know what I need to do off the tee to give myself the best opportunity to just find the screen and give myself a comfortable 2-putt here. This is not a hole I'm scoring on. And for everybody, there's probably going to be 12 holes like that. It might be different for everyone based on their skill set and their comfortability and what they find in the practice rounds, what their caddies let them know. But there's so many holes that are just, this is a par hole. This is not a hole where I'm going to get aggressive. And the scoring will show that. There's going to be a few spots where guys can take advantage, but it's a 70. There's not those eagle opportunities. There's not those 2-putting for birdie a lot. It's going to be kind of pick your spots here so tactical golf, smart golf, and like you said, people who've played this or people who understand how their game translates on this course.
Yeah, you got a birdie one.
I want to throw Jordan out because he's starting to get it. He's starting to get it. We saw glimpses again last week. Man, he's still Jordan.
I know. Yeah, I was gonna say you got a birdie one. One is like by far regardless of the round, regardless of the year, that's the birdie hole. 2 is a pretty easy par 4. And then we get into the horrible horseshoe. Good 3-hole stretch there, 3, 4, and 5. There are, like you said, there are bogey stretches or stretches where it's like, you know what? I got to take my medicine. I got to get out of here with a par. Especially if the winds can kick up a little bit too. Obviously, that's not uncommon in Texas this time of year in particular. So that's just course management here, pretty massive feature of knowing how to just kind of survive, avoid trouble, and avoid the big crooked numbers. So like you said, we won here last year at 8 under, hit Grillo at 100-1 here last year. This is a tilting event because he had it, and then I don't know if you remember that last year, hit that wayward drive on 18, got caught in the water stream, and it like just trickled down, didn't stop, and then had to drop. And Scotty probably wins if he makes any putts. Shank had it for a little bit last year. Harris English went into the fourth round with a massive lead and couldn't get anything going. And kind of played his way out of it pretty quickly. So an interesting tournament because again, it's tough. So scores are condensed. You're not getting these massive birdie runs from guys last year. So that's also just terrifying. Scotty's here, and he's played here twice the last 2 years, second and third, and then last year third, couldn't make a putt. So he is 260, 275 in some spots, and just absolutely terrifying when you look at the odds board to start.
Yeah, go look at the top 5 prices. It's funny. This is how, granted, there's a lot of vig in that market, and you should be pulling that out, but it's still like this is his implied percentage to finish in the top 5 guys. It's something that just speaks to his skill level and where he's at in this game right now. You brought up the winds. I'd be remiss not to bring up the weather a little. It's been dry here, drier, and we're looking at some high wind. It's Texas. We're gonna get the same winds we get when you get Valero and the other ones. It's going to be some gusty conditions. It's going to be hot, and it's been hot, dry, and windy. So we might have some baked out areas. It depends how they, how much they want to water, how they want to treat this course, how much they want to water this rough. But it might be a little drier, it might be a little faster, it might be a little firmer, especially compared to last week. They have an opportunity to do the funniest thing possible. We could just be like Thursday morning, the greens are just brown. It's like they haven't watered since last Tuesday. They want to show up Valhalla. This is going to be like even par winner here. Basically, a U.S. Open primer. I doubt, I'm speaking out of my ass here. They're not going to do anything silly like that. But it should be a little faster and a little firmer. And yeah, these greens are already tough to hold, especially some of them were, we did part of the redesign was lowering some of those. So those shots are going to be just harder to see what your target is. So it should be interesting. Kind of back to the Gil Hanse renovation. I don't think it like drastically changes how they play.
I don't either.
There is going to be a little more water danger, but a lot of it is like these Broncos, and a lot of them are dried out. So, unless we see some heavy rains or something, like some of these spots that are going to be, drainage ditches, water dangers, hazards, they're not really going to come into play if we don't have water running through them. So that's something I want to kind of get a glimpse, because I feel like some of them are like drainage from the Trinity River, and there is water moving through them, whereas some are just dried out unless we do get some rain, because they're just drainage to the river from the course. It's a lot of acreage. That water has to, go somewhere when it does rain. Just like the storm sewers in a giant Walmart parking lot. Like if those weren't there, there'd be a shitload of water on a spot like that. So same kind of thing. It'll be interesting to see what this weather brings us.
Yeah, and Gil Hanse, he's been the guy and has had some, I think they're pretty successful renovations that we've seen from him when he's had his hand in the pot the last handful of years. Southern Hills, I think, was a great course that became better after he went and renovated it. People like drag LACC. I thought that was a fantastic watch. Golfers had to think about shots. There were shot options. There was strategy involved. Yeah, there were some like big wide open fairways. Everyone just goes back to the 62s on Thursday and then the tee shot on the 72nd hole with Wyndham Clark. But it's like, hey, that score, like no one else was really in double digits. So like that golf was challenging for those guys, right? Like penal greens, strategy. And I think you're going to have that here at Colonial, which I think is a nice change after the TrackMan golf that we watched for 4 days. And again, it was a great leaderboard, but it was, and that's okay. Like you can have it both ways.
I kept yelling at myself, like, should I be complaining about this? Look at this leaderboard.
It's okay. I think it's okay to have it both ways.
I was fine complaining because it's like, no, this is a boring hole.
Yeah.
It was like the, do you remember the Canadian Open that Taylor won? and they just kept playing the 18th. And it's like the 18th is a shitty hole for a playoff. There's only one way to play it. Like there's no variety in what's happening here. This isn't fun, but at the same time, you're like, this is so fun because this is a great playoff. Like you can have it both ways for sure.
You can have it both ways. Yeah.
Let's talk.
We got a great leaderboard. We got a great leaderboard. We had drama. It brought the best of the guys out. I think the casuals could give two shits about any of this stuff, right? They want names that they're familiar with. Give me some like drama down the stretch. That's fine. But it's also okay to want a little bit more for the fact that we get two handpicked courses like this for our two big events, right? We go to Augusta every year. The RNA handles whatever happens to the Open. That Rhoda is nice, and those are, interesting golf courses. Other than, I guess, St. Andrews, which whatever, that's not challenging anymore anyway. We'll figure out that when that comes back up. But I don't know. There's a lot of good golf courses.
Troon, I've done a little Troon research. I'm pumped for this one. I like
Troon flyovers.
And next year at the PGA, Quail Hollow.
Why? Going right back. Yeah.
I don't know. Quail Hollow's fine, but it's not. I'm not super excited for that. Final note on the PGA, as it turned out, getting divorced was not the motivator to win that. People were like, "Oh, betting on Rory now." What? Why? I guess his game should have translated better. He just didn't have the greatest week. He needed to score a little more, obviously. Key stats here then. Key stats at Colonial. I mean, is it off the top? Driving accuracy, greens, probably good drives, greens in regulation. Yep. It's hard to find a stat that says I landed my ball when I hit it off the tee on the correct spot in the fairway. The closest thing we would have is good drives gained, which is, if you found a green in regulation, then it counts as obviously you had a good enough drive to hit the second shot where you needed to be. It's a little noisy, but we don't have a strokes gained landed on the proper side of the fairway for this particular dogleg stat quite yet. We kind of know who some of the guys are who are better at course management, but as far as key stats, I don't know. What do you have as far as ball striking?
Yeah, I think ball striking less than driver because you do have a lot of forced layups. So I think that tells you a story of both off the tee and approach. So in these situations where, you can't just grip it and rip it, how are you impacting your ball striking? It takes out any of the short game noise. These are smaller greens. I think like 5th or 6th smallest on tour. So that's its own thing. Ron likes around the green on short grass this week as a key stat, which we could touch on. I think you're just looking at strokes gains, total difficult scoring conditions, because I think that's what we have here as well. I think that matters a ton. You mentioned accuracy. Yeah, I prefer distance from the edge of the fairway. Because you just have to. Again, that's better, but it's not what you're talking about either, right? Like it still doesn't put you. It's talking about when you're off the fairway. Are you still close to the fairway? Now that could be you're still close to the wrong side of the fairway. You didn't miss it by much, but where your actual target was or where you want to be is probably still far away. That could be the case as well. But I think it's still a better stat than just binary accuracy too. And then just the approach. I can get into the weeds on your proximity ranges, but it's the shorter stuff. Because I think that's definitely where most of the shots. I'm looking last year. I think we had about like 35% were 100 to 150, which is very different than what we typically see. And then the 150 to 175 bucket is the next highest. And that's like, again, almost 5% higher than what we typically see. And then we're under average from like anything from 175 plus. So that, again, shorter, forced layups and all those things.
And that's where I do hate proximity a little. When we end up on a course like this with small greens, you're not going to have a lot of 90-foot lag putts here. The greens are that small. If you're that far from the pin, you're hitting with you're hitting with your pitching wedge. You're chipping, so like you went back to the original stat that you talked about in Ron's preview, the around the green from the short grass. That is an interesting part of here, especially compared to last week. Like, they had I don't want to call it a collar because it's bigger than a collar. It was the whole damn shirt. But, the tall grass around the greens that just stops the ball.
It's boring. That's kind of
it's boring. It is boring. It's boring.
If you're gonna have a raised green, I want that grass around it cut as short as you can go with fairway grass, like full on fairway cut at that. I want misses to be problem. I don't want it to, I missed the green and it's running and it stops 3 feet off the green because you have super tall Bermuda grass here. And, or, obviously not Bermuda last week, but, I do like the short grass around the greens as far as just watching golf, nerding out, enjoying guys being penalized for bad misses. I do want that. So that's something we'll look at here. And we didn't really talk about the rough. It's 3 inches ish, but it is going to be grabby. You're going to end up with some bad shots out of this rough. Because it is going to grab at the clubs a little. It is going to cause you problems of spin, flight, distance. So, accuracy is not only important just because you need to have a clear open shot for your second shot, but this rough is not going to be easy by any means either.
Yep. Yeah. Going back to the course stuff too. It's like the thing with Valhalla was the safe spot was easy. That was the thing. There was when you could either go at the pin or when you chose to not go at the pin, there was no risk of missing on you got to get it over this plateau. Otherwise you're in trouble in the safe spot. Like I'm choosing to not go after the pin. I'm gonna go to the fat part of the green. But the fat part of the green is just flat and soft. So that was a tough part. So anyway, we'll move on. We're Colonial. We're Scotty Scheffler, 260. What do we do with it, Andy?
I don't know, man. You bet positions. I had some decent luck with that last week. I wish Spieth and Fleetwood would have. I had Spieth and Fleetwood top 20 bets. I really thought they were close. Like those guys played well, just not quite well enough. I honestly, for most of my bets, did not think the course was going to be that easy. That was a problem with my bets last week. I was looking for some of my guys to be able to overcome that. I bet against Dean Burmester. Like I basically said, I think people who are inaccurate off the tee are going to have trouble here. Nobody had trouble there. So he didn't have any trouble.
John Rahm had trouble.
He was, Burmester was top 10 going into the 4th round, I believe. He ended up fading a little, but betting against him was a bad idea. So I think this week for betting, and we'll build a model here quick before we get into, best bets and some long shots to look at. But, it's probably going to be some positional stuff, some matchup stuff, some over-unders. I had good luck with that too. I was lightly betting, but still looking at it, and Bryson to shoot 66 or better on Sunday was 2-1. If that's one of those, hey, Andy, how much did you bet on that? Not enough. That's always the answer. Because I played his under 67.5, and then I tickled the 66.5. I played something else on him as well. Just over 4.5 birdies. I think he had that by about the 11th hole. The scoring conditions on Sunday were conducive to a few bets like that for a few golfers, but I'm going to start looking at some of that as well. It's harder to do that when you don't watch as much golf. Obviously, this was not one of those weeks where I didn't watch golf. Sometimes I have volleyball tournaments. Sometimes I have a course I don't care for. I just don't watch as much. It makes it harder to make those bets. But I'm going to try to be live betting a little more on Saturday and Sunday, I think, on this, because I don't know how much money I want to invest in the outright markets when Scotty Scheffler is here, when he has that high-end capability. And, it's not a major, so maybe we don't get this, but they had the without Scheffler markets last week.
FanDuel has them right now.
Didn't do you a lot. I remember thinking, I'm like, oh man, should I have put Brooks and Bryson? Should I have bet those the without Scheffler markets too? Wouldn't have done you a hell of a lot of good when Xander went. So such is life. You have Underdog up on the screen. If you're watching this, you can see this. If not, you can hear about it. They are our new partner. They have the Pick'em games. That's another thing we've both enjoyed. We'll have more of that going forward. But
some of those live things you were just talking about are Pick'em options in the lobby. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. They have Pick'em options while the tournament is going on for the most part. So that's a lot of fun. If you want, check this out. It is a good way to get yourself a free 90-day subscription. We have that quarterly option if you sign up for a new Underdog account using our link, using the promo code BetSpurtsGolf.
you will get an email from one of our guys saying, hey, here's a unique promo code. Go to this betspertsgolf.com/whatever, punch it in. We'll give you a free 90 days that will give you full access to the rabbit hole, the tool we're about to use, which honestly, if you want to do some modeling and you don't know jack about modeling, it is a very easy way to start taking what you think you know about this golf course, mashing it together, and start playing with that. So check that out. If you have questions, hit us up on Twitter. Otherwise, the links are in the description. betspertsgolf.com. BetSpertsGolf is the promo code. Sign up link is in the show notes. And here is the rabbit hole that we just mentioned. I don't know if we talk about this enough, and maybe we got some people who haven't watched the show religiously as they should be who've done this, but we say we make modeling a little easier. At the same time, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of buttons. There's a lot of menus. Maybe it is a little overwhelming, but for the most part, we'll try to talk through it. And it's just basically we're taking some stats from previous golf tournaments, filtering it to what we think was important or what we want to look at. Like, hey, we want to look at similar courses in regards to the green surface. We want to look at similar tournaments in regards to how hard the scoring was. Maybe this week we want to look at how have people played over the last year when the greens are tiny, because the greens are tiny here. And all of that, all these filters are just trying to get you the stats that you want to look at, the stats that you think are important. So maybe we go last 12 months, small greens, and then we just start adding stuff. And you don't have to create a mixed condition model. You can just whittle down some conditions and just look at this main page and see how people are putting, see how people are, hitting their approach shots. We are going to build a mixed condition model this week, and maybe we start with something like that for off the tee. I know we kind of set in our ways on starting with the tee shot the way that we would if we were at the course, but I don't know, how would you want to evaluate who's bringing in the best off the tee game for a course like this? Because like I said, can't be overpowered. It's not going to be driving distance. Is it just the distance from the edge of the fairway stat you brought up?
I think it's a good one. I think I want to start with, we like to do these anchor stats to start. And I think it's a really good way to do it. And part of it is having, we can get really granular, like Andy was touching on here. There are so many stats. It could be a little bit overwhelming. I think you can overfit by looking at smaller samples, looking at too granular of a statistic. And some of these bigger picture anchor stats, I think, tell a better story to make sure that you're capturing who the actual best golfers are in the field and why they're there to begin with. So looking at, I think, because we do have, last year, every round played over par. They got progressively harder as the weekend went along. Same thing. There was like one round 2 years ago that was like just barely under par. Otherwise, you had a couple of really hard rounds in there. So this is a difficult scoring golf course. So if we want to weed out the data that would capture very easy scoring conditions, I think that that's something that we should be looking to do. So if you look at difficult and very difficult, and right now I'm looking at a 12-month sample, we'll see what kind of rounds we get here. This is a decent sample size of rounds. Just look at the best players in this field on difficult and very difficult scoring conditions, and you're getting Scotty Scheffler at the top, Max Homa second. You feel good about that. Akshay third, Brian Harman fourth. So again, winners on tour, major champions here as well. And I think this is a good leading indicator of who the best players are in these conditions. We're going to go ahead and add that. This has the PGA Tour data updated in it too, so you're getting some of that too. You can see, look at the Thomas Dietrich getting probably a little leg up there. Harris English had a nice finish last week as well. Those guys are captured here too. So we'll start with there, and then let's go off the tee. Difficult scoring. Again, making notes for myself for our model. You don't have to. If I could spell, then we'll have it. But off the tee, less than driver. Ball striking, less than driver. Ball striking, small greens. I mean, I'm sold on any of those.
Yeah, I like less than driver.
Okay. We're also going to the condition section here, which is really cool. The ability to look at off the tee club. Obviously, last week and the week before, we've had driver heavy events at Quail Hollow and Valhalla, where everyone's gripping and ripping on 4s and 5s. There are a lot of forced layups here. Less than driver applies, I think, quite a bit. So we'll look at this. We'll back up the sample a little bit longer. See if less year if we get a decent sample. So even go a little bit longer. We'll go last 2 years, less than driver. Strokes gained off the tee, or do you want to look at something more specific in the driving section? Off the tee section here.
Yeah, you're just fine in the off the tee.
Strokes gained off the tee, less than driver last 2 years. Scotty Scheffler, Sungjae Im, Kevin Yu, Minwoo Lee, Alejandro Tosti. Love that he went forward on 13 on Sunday. Tyler Duncan, Harman, Colin Morikawa, Austin Eck Goat, and Chris Kirk rounds out your top 10. When you're looking at good drive percentage in less than driver, which I think is also another good way to look at it. We can look at good drives on small greens. I think that's also a good application this week as well. Another, some of the similar names here: Morikawa, Harman, Aaron Rai, Scotty Scheffler, Zach Blair, Brandt Snedeker, Tom Kim, Kevin Yu again, also Chris Kirk and Brendan Todd. So some overlap in that section, but some names that, get a little bit more bump when you tie in good drive, which also ties in approach. So you can look at both of them. We'll add off the tee. Off the tee, less than driver. And then why don't we add, see what kind of sample we got here with smaller greens with our less than driver. It could be a really small, noisy sample.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both small greens, total or good driving percentage. What do we think about that? That looks pretty good.
Yeah, big enough sample. We can do that.
Okay.
Sort out. I mean, if Ryan sorted out the people with a very small sample size there, that minimum drop down there below everything else will say you have to have at least 8 rounds in this condition to be considered. So you don't have somebody who just played 5 rounds, had a outlier performance, and suddenly gets ranked number 1 with a high average.
Exactly. Yeah. A few other things too. You can look down here in our view expert section. You want to see the model that Ron and I built on our first look show yesterday. You can go ahead and do that here. Matt Vicenzi, Tap It In podcast, Andy Lack, who Andy shouted out earlier, Inside Golf podcast. You can look at all of their models here as well, along with the things that we build, which is nice too. Stats that we like to look at. Maybe we missed something. Maybe there's something you are looking on your own. You're like, hey, I want to do a little bit more digging, mess around with the sample size that they used, all sorts of stuff. Just a nice resource for you to go ahead and look at. You can download any of these into a CSV too. If you want to build multiple models, go play around in Excel, you have the option to do that as well. But I like good drive percentage here into small greens. I think that this, tells a little bit of the story that we're looking to capture this week.
Yeah.
Well, what else do you want to do approach wise? Good drive obviously does that. So we're double counting.
Yeah, like I said, I don't love proximity on small greens. I think we might be fine. Okay. I kind of want to just put in some around the green play.
Right.
And, like maybe for putting, again, it's small greens. I don't know. So I don't know about 3-putt percentage. That said, it doesn't take a very big green for somebody to 3-putt if they're off. Like, what's the best way to look for guys who aren't going to find big numbers, who aren't going to screw up these par holes, who are good at, basically I'm describing scrambling, I guess. Sorry.
I also think around the green proximity is interesting. Because you can do it this way. You can go around the green proximity, and then we can mess around with the height of the grass or the rough. This way.
I don't hate that, because a lot of these, if it is, if you're chipping on, it might be your third shot. This has to be within 10 feet. Otherwise, suddenly I am losing a stroke here.
Yep. And you can see Scotty Scheffler, number 1, Sungjae, Poston, McClure, Messier, like we have a little Frenchman in the field here. Kuchar, Doug Gim did not get arrested last week, but probably almost did some stuff that could have, if you know Doug Gim and all. Denny McCarthy, Max Gracerman, Chad Ramey, Lucas Glover. Some other interesting names too. I saw like around the green proximity. This is, I think, a nice kind of different way. Let's mess around with the sample. This is a pretty small sample.
I like how you said he was a Frenchman, even though he has an American flag. The guy's from Charleston.
All right, well.
I mean, to be fair,
it's a French-looking name.
The French were, the French were there during the Revolutionary War. They were on the coast. They brought some boats, helped out.
Getting a little history this morning as well.
I'm trying to think of the name of that French admiral now. It'll come to me.
Off of my French admirals. Scoring, anything scoring wise? I mean, we kind of captured difficult scoring conditions, so you can you can make a case that we already did that. Big Dan checking in the chat doesn't want us to talk about any French generals. I get it. I get where Dan's coming from. What
is going to drive me nuts until I think of it too.
We got 4 stats. Even for us, that's light. But you're good with it. I see it on your face.
Yeah, I think let's just rip with it.
All right. What do we want to do? Difficult scoring. Probably the bigger one will give it a bump. We'll go 35. We didn't do anything. We should go some sort of. I want to add distance from the edge of the fairway. We don't have to count it as much because I think we're doing something. But I think we do agree that you need some sort of something in terms of accuracy. I'll mess around with rough length short, and we'll get a little smaller sample here of maybe what's happened in the last we'll go 9 months. Distance from the edge of the fairway, good sample size for most of these guys. And you can see Colin, Scotty, Siwoo, Griot, who won here last year. A little bit of confirmation biased. I think makes some sense. All right, now we got 5 stats. Feel a little bit better about that. Some sort of capture of accuracy. I think we'll still start strong with difficult scoring conditions. What do you want to bump down a little bit? We'd like to bump down short game stuff typically.
Yeah, take that down a little. I was going to say, let's focus on the ball striking. It's still going to just be a ball striking course. We're getting a little granular, such as life, but overall, this is a course that's going to reward good ball striking, be it a shorter course.
Yep. Boom, we're done. Andy and Noonan on the betting show. And this is our Colonial. Save it as an expert ranking. You can go ahead and you said you'll be able to have that in the drop down menu. You can save as many of these bad boys as you like. You can see here lots of different stuff. You can build some evergreen models and play around with it too. Excited about some of the cool features we're going to continue to add here. All right, top of the model, Scotty Scheffler, number 1. Colin Morikawa, number 2. That's 1 and 2 on the odds board as well. Aaron Rai, 3. Brian Harmon, 4. Siwoo Kim, 5. Doug Gim, 6. Imagine building a model without Doug Gim in the top 10. Denny McCarthy, 7. Tom Kim, 8. Lucas Glover, 9. Austin Eckroat rounds out your top 10. Some other notables here. Sanjay at 11. Sep 13. Harris Inglis 14. Killer Keith 17. Akshay at 20. Again, we're not seeing any Finau. We're not seeing any Jordan Spieth. Spieth down here at 31. Which I think, again, interesting. Doesn't always feel like a fit. Finau 37. Although you can't argue with Spieth's past here. Yeah, some interesting names in the model. Any takeaways here, Andy? Blocky 132 in the model.
Straka missed the cut last week, but obviously a different kind of course. It was great. Great irons, just didn't have the scoring, didn't have the putting, didn't have the short game. But prior to that, he had 2 top 10s. Wells Fargo, 8th, 5th at the Heritage, playing good golf. Should benefit from his accuracy here. Should benefit from his irons, his greens regulations. Like, he's the guy I like. Again, maybe not to win based on Scotty, and I'm only getting like 50 to 1, but top 10, top 20, maybe a small win bet. It was Lafayette was the Frenchman I was thinking of. There we go. Wasn't actually a character in that movie, but the boats show up and he's like, hey, there's Lafayette, and he's here to help us win the Revolutionary War, guys. And we did. Spoiler.
Spoiler
So Sepp Straka, obviously, Aaron Rye. Aaron Rye is another one where you see that red on the ARG, but man, the ball striking is going to be good enough to probably score where he needs to score here. And he's a guy obviously I love. If you bet Aaron Rye, you have to bet Aaron Rye first round leader. That's just the rules. I do not make him. He's another one where his driving accuracy is banana land. Okay finish last week in a better field, a much toughest field of the year. I mean, that's all there is to it. That is the toughest field of the year. This is a tougher field last week than we'll see at the U.S. Open or the Open. It's finishing in the top 40 for Aaron Rye. Probably a pretty good result. Good job, buddy. He was fourth at the Byron Nelson. He has a couple other top 10s over the past year or so, sometimes on a little easier courses. But one of them was in Texas at the Houston, where, again, his approach game carried him. His approach game carried him at Byron Nelson. So Aaron Rye's a guy I like. Again, I'm not so sure he's going to beat everybody. 70-1 is a pretty decent number on him here, though. So that probably top 10, top 20. Those are the guys that I've focused in on so far.
T12 here at Colonial last year for Aaron Rye as well. If you want to get into, again, the place where horse history has historically mattered. So he is plus 100 on Bet Rivers currently to T40. So the threshold pretty low for Aaron Rye. He is one of 7 outright bets that I've made this week, Andy. I went just down the board.
Good idea. Scotty's 2-1, but let's make 7 outright bets.
Just splashed down the board on non-Scotties. And I've been fine going to the well on Scotty, trying to get creative to do it.
I cede the floor. I cede the floor to you. We have like 6-7 minutes here before I got to run. Tell me all about them.
I bunched them all.
You don't have to talk about them all. You can keep some secrets if you want. But who do you got?
They've all moved a little bit. They're all a little bit. I got again, pay that rent with the CLV, bud. Like golf, all right. CLV 2 is just contagious. But they're all kind of in the same. They're all 50 or higher. That was kind of the area that I lived in, and now they're all kind of like all bunched up. So they've all got kind of in the same spot. Tom Hoagie. Really nice showing last week. Again, another guy you wouldn't think they would play well. The bigger course.
Familiar with the area?
Not necessarily. You don't know. Has he ever been to Texas even? I don't know.
He did go to TCU.
Great tool that I would love to find a way for us to replicate or build off of and do something really cool.
What did you play in college? Like, which courses have you played?
That would be cool. But our friends over at Data Golf have a cool like proximity range strokes gain bucket thing. So instead of like actually proximity, looking at strokes gain from that range, best player in the world in 2024, which captures live data as well as much as they can there, from 150 or 100 to 150 is Tom Hoagie. And 35% of approach shots came from that range last year. So Hoagie 55-1 plus 110 to T30. Seabez, same thing. Third in that range, short stuff. Nice showings last couple of years at Colonial, T15, T21, T3 a couple starts ago in the DP World Tour. Really good bent grass putter. Just kind of a nice fit there too. No one likes cheering for Billy Horschel.
He's just a good putter. Like he can spike his putter.
Yeah, I should probably look at that. Maybe that'd be something to even get more confirmation bias. But T8 last week for Billy Horschel at the PGA Championship. Another great putter who's putting even better than he typically is. Won at Putacana on the alt field event a couple weeks ago that we just don't really touch on. But the ball striking numbers are back to where they typically were for Billy Ho, who's last year was an absolute bottoming out. I don't know what happened there, but he's familiar with this track. He's historically been a form guy, and I think he's currently in form. Plus 110 to T30 for Billy Ho. I took a 65-1 for him to win. Aaron Rye, 70. Mentioned the plus 100 to T40. Never trust a man with 2 black gloves. That's what Johnny Conker told me. But again, you can maybe sorry, it's too soon.
RIP.
But yeah, hey, Aaron Rye, can he beat Scotty? I don't know, but he's playing some pretty good golf, and 70 is a big number, and I like the plus 100. Also a 70 on Keegan Bradley, who got mentioned at the a list at the top Only 3 guys gained more strokes ball striking last week than Keegan Bradley. Xander Schauffele, Victor Hovland, Scotty Scheffler. Keegan was tied with Bryson. Yeah, I mean, look, Keegan fairway finders sometimes, and ball striking is nice. Just the putting has been terrible this year, and he's put together a couple nice ones in a row. So plus 130 to T30. If you don't like the outright market, I think is a nice approach. So, and the last 2 were my first 2 actually. Austin Eckroat at 90, a bad number for Austin Eckroat, who's a pretty damn good golfer. I don't have to sell you on that. We went to the well often last year on Austin Eckroat right around this time of year. T18 at PGA, T18 or better in 3 of the past 4 starts. Has a win, played well here. T16 last year in his debut. So yeah, I just think 90 was a bad number. Plus 130 to T30. That's more of your thing. And then the last one is Andrew Putnam, who does not win. But he was 100 to 1 to win. He's now 50 to 1 to win. So I don't know. I wasn't alone, I guess, in the Putnam love. But he's just a terrific short iron player and a good putter. And has played well this year at some difficult tracks. API, T8, Harbortown, positional golf, short, small greens, T18. He is plus 130 to T30. So those are my losers that I feel really good about their finishing position bets. But those are the guys that Scotty's going to whoop this week. But again, spice down the board. I just wanted to stay away from the Colin, Homa, Finau, Spieth section. I just think it's Scotty or bombs. So I went with the bombs.
Oh, we'll do the nobody got it again last week. In the comments, a few people commented. I'll throw it out there again. If you leave a YouTube comment, and I'm going to do it again with Scotty. You can't pick Scotty because that's not fair. I'm not giving out that many free subs. But if you pick the winner and you only get one guess, one guy, one golfer, not named Scotty. If it is Scotty, I'll do something for everyone who left out. Like I'll send you all something nice anyway. But if you pick the winner in the YouTube comments, I'll send you a free month of BetSports Golf. So go ahead and fire off some comments. If you're not subscribing, hit the subscribe button. At a minimum, hit the thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging. That's our bets. Everything else will be on the site at betsportsgolf.com. Also, the free newsletter comes out tonight or tomorrow. You can subscribe to that on the site. You can check out, if you want to listen to this in podcast form, it is available everywhere. And be on the lookout for the DFS show out tomorrow. We'll catch you next week for another exciting golf tournament that we will bet on. What's that? Canada. So for me and Ryan, see you next week.
Blame